At the tone, please state your name followed by the pound sign.
So, as mentioned, if everyone could place their phone on mute, that would be great. That would keep the background noise to a minimum. At the end of the session, we will have Q&A, so I'll go through the agenda, but we should have at least 15 minutes for that towards the end. Please feel free to post your questions over the chat as well at the end. We will be recording the session. I've kicked off the recording already, so we will have this recorded and we will upload it to our YouTube channel. That'll probably be done sometime tomorrow. And you will also get a survey link sent out as well. So those are some of the housekeeping tips. I am actually going to take the option here and just put all of you guys on mute. So if you do have a question during this, if you could actually just maybe take note and we'll get through questions at the end, it will probably allow us to get to the demonstration part of the webinar today, which will be one of the nice kind of things that we can do, and that's a useful piece of it. So my name is Robert Whelan. I am
Presentation mode is now enabled.
I am a subject matter expert for the data quality and profiling applications. Worked with those applications for about 7 years, and so I will be your host today, and hopefully you will find the information that we present today useful and allow you to have a better understanding of what you can do with profiling and what you can do with scorecards. So on our agenda today, we will be looking at profiling and scorecards and its role in the data quality life cycle. Some basic profiling, some more advanced topics under profiling. We'll then look at scorecards, and we cover creating and running scorecards, and also how you can access that data, both using internal and external applications. And then I'll run through a demonstration. We do cover a lot of different slides, but I am aware that as I show up slides, the intermediate steps to get to each isn't always completely obvious from a slide. So we will do a demo of most of the things that we cover here today and a couple of other topics, just so that if you are looking back at this recording later, you have those steps available to you. And then, as I mentioned, we have time for Q&A at the end. So profiling scorecards, it's a key component of the data quality process and any kind of data migration or ETL process as well. We want to make sure that we know the metadata behind our data. First step really is profile and discover. So this is just about discovering the metadata, size of our data, like data types, inferred data types, uniqueness, the number of nodes, etc. We also then can use scorecards and profiling to define and design metrics and rules. So we've discovered our data. We also want to be able to measure the quality of that data, both initially and then as we work on that data, we want to be able to then monitor how our mappings, etc., are affecting it. It's also a key part of the design and implementation of rules and routines. So we'll see this later, but as you're creating rules or mappings, you can use midstream profiling to get immediate results, and that can greatly kind of speed up your development cycle. You don't need to kind of finish out a mapping, run it, and then get the results. You can get immediate feedback. So it does kind of speed that up a lot, and that's very helpful for developers and analysts alike. And then finally, once we've discovered what's in our data, we've decided how we want to measure that data, we've designed and implemented rules, routines, and mappings to improve our data and transform that data. We can then continue to monitor those DQ metrics over time. So we may have set everything up and it's all running as we would hope, but somewhere, so many months down the line, so certain new data gets introduced into our system, whatever it might be, and suddenly that causes our rules or our mappings are no longer as effective as we would expect. We can get immediate and very quick feedback through scorecarding on that. That's just where it kind of lives in the whole life cycle of data quality. So a simple profile, so this is just the most basic profile, so you can do this in two places. So the first one we look at is through the analyst. I'll literally just go through the new menu, data object profile, choose your data object, set a location where you want to save that, save and run, and you will get your results immediately. There are other options you can set, and I'll cover those as we go through as well. But that's the most basic profile. So very quick, pretty immediate. Doesn't kind of it's kind of all wizard driven, so easy to see immediate results. That'll give us our basic metadata about our tables, flat files, whatever they might be. Similar in the developer, it's just a couple of steps. The simplest option is just to right-click a data object that you've created, choose profile, select that you want to profile that, give it a location, and then just hit finish. And again, you get similar results. So very, very quick, and you can get those results quite quickly. Obviously, depending on the size of your table, it may take some time for that to run. If you've got, hundreds of columns and tens of millions of rows, it will take some time for that to actually process through. But the actual process of creating them is quite quick. So one of the first options that you may want to look at on profiling and simple profiles is filters. So profiling a defined subset of the data can be achieved using these filters. And again, I'll show you the screenshots in Analyst, but the same can be done in the developer UI. Anywhere that there is something that you can't do in one or the other, I'll mention that as well. But the majority of tasks can be achieved in both tools. So simply to create a filter, we have a number of different options. They can be very simple. It can be literally a field is greater than, less than, equal to, between, etc. Or we can use the expressions by choosing the advanced, so you can kind of create more advanced expressions there. Or you can actually enter the SQL directly. In each of these cases, my filter is the exact same, but you have all of those options for creating filters. So you don't, if there's any particular subset of the data you need to profile, you can do that. That will, those filters will push that all the way back to the database. So the actual select that goes to the database will only bring across the information that's required. We can also add rules. So adding rules can be created in the analyst when creating or editing the profile. So literally as you created there, you can add them during the wizard. And again, you can add in expressions. You can select expressions and create those. And they can be expressions. The expression language can get reasonably complex. So you have quite a bit of latitude there for creating different rules. As you create those rules, you can also you can either apply those rules, or you can use ones that you've created earlier. They can be rules that you created when working on previous profiles if you saved them as reusable rules, or rules that you've created using either Rule Builder, or you may have developed those in the developer UI. But as long as it validates as a rule, you'll be able to select that and apply it to a column. And rules, the output appears in the same manner as columns on the profile. And you can do all the same things that you can do with just a standard column profile. You can drill down on it, you get to see the various values and patterns, etc. And I'll show you a little bit more of this in the demo. You can see some more of it then. Back in the developer, one of the other useful items that I mentioned was the midstream profiling. So this just allows us, during the development of a mapping, you can right-click on any transformation or maplet and see the profile results. So if for example, you're adding a standardizer or something, and you want to kind of see if it is producing the output that you want, rather than finish the mapping and kind of run it and then kind of profile the target, you can literally just do that at the transformation level. It'll give you immediate feedback, and then you can either continue on with your mapping because you're happy with the results, or go back and tweak that particular transformation or maplet to achieve the results that you want. Again, as you can see, you get quick results there. So immediate feedback on the effectiveness of new rules, transformations, etc. And again, you can drill down to see the records that are meeting the criteria. So you can see the common theme here. Basically, it tends to be quite easy in any of these places to create a simple profile, and in each of those you can drill down and see the underlying information. So, quick and immediate results when you're in a development environment. So that was basic profiling. What we'll look at next is some advanced profiling. So the first part of this, and the two parts of this, there's enterprise discovery and data domain discovery. they tend to often get run together, and you can as you're creating one of these profiles, you can choose to run both of them together. You don't have to, but it is possible. So first one, advanced profiling. This is basically automated discovery for entire databases or many databases as well. You're not confined to a single database. You can run this across as many databases as you want, or you're basically able to run on your hardware. So it basically gives you an option to select multiple tables across different databases. So as you work through the wizard, you can any tables or flat files that you may have added data objects, you can select those. You can also, as part of the wizard, just browse through the connections that you've created. So you create your connections in the admin console or through the developer UI, or etc. But any of those connections, you don't necessarily have to have created the data objects, imported those tables. And you can literally just select a full database and then choose all of the tables or a subset and profile those. And that will create the data objects and the profiles all in a single action. Again, while it's very powerful, it's also one to kind of use a little bit of caution, because if your database has 10,000 tables, if you just select them all to profile, it's going to take some time to do that. So again, very powerful, but to be just to be kind of aware that you are running a lot of profiles, and that's just something that you don't want to do kind of unless you have the kind of your access to the server is permitted to do so. And again, that will just run all of those. It creates all the data objects, all of the profiles, and that will continue to run. And you'll see the kind of the list of profiles that are running. So in my one here, I've literally only got 12. I don't have too many of them. It's pretty simple. So just 12 there. That's created all those data objects in one of those profiles. But again, you can do that in hundreds, thousands of tables across many databases. So while you get a lot of the results in the analyst UI, there are certain pieces of enterprise discovery that you will only be able to use in the developer. One of those is this enterprise data topology. So this shows you kind of relatedness of tables. And so basically each of these circles is the size is relative to the number of tables that have been found to have relationships. There are plans to have this in the analyst in the future, but right now it's a developer-only piece of the tool. And as you can see, you can basically select into these. If you double-click on one of these, it'll take you to the entity diagram, and that will show you the relationships between those tables. You can select any of the tables and pin that as the focus of that particular entity diagram, and that will then change and show you the relationships, how they're all related to the table you've just set as the actual target of it all. You can then right-click on any of the connecting arrows, and that will actually kind of allow you to drill down and look at the relationships that have been identified there. And all of those relationships will show as inferred initially. And again, all of this is about discovering the data, and there is then the options to go ahead and kind of make your own decisions around that. But this is really about making sure that we find any potential relationships, and then we can allow data stewards and users to confirm or kind of reject those. So that's enterprise discovery. So we've basically, we now have the option to profile a single table. We've looked at how we can profile entire databases or many, many tables at the same time. And that is all about discovering our metadata, so our data types, information about the size of the columns, the precision, other things like uniqueness, etc. And what we did, the next step is data domain discovery, and this is basically about discovering what's really in your data. So this is actually examining the content of the data, so that you can understand where you've got information stored. This is particularly useful and important around personal health information, personal credit information, and personal identifiable information, those three acronyms that if you work with secure data, you're probably well aware of. And this is basically about looking through the tables and trying to find where you may have data stored that you didn't realize that sensitive data was there, so you can then take appropriate action to make sure that information is treated as it should be. So data domain discovery applies rules to the data to determine this meaning. So, for example, one of the outer boxes is social security number. There's also things like passport numbers for different countries, etc. Some that check for dates, email addresses, and others. But they are just simply rules, effectively maplets. So you can create your own if you happen to have particular IDs, etc. within your databases that you would like to make sure you know where they exist. If you can create a maplet that can identify that, you can then use that as a data domain rule and use it in this process. I want you to actually run this against your databases, and as mentioned, you can run it when you're running the enterprise discovery as well. You have options around how you view the data, so you can basically pick a data domain rule. So you can pick, for example, on this one we've picked email, so we've picked the email rule, and it tells us all of the tables and columns where it found a match. Or you can actually select a particular column and it will tell you all of the rules that got matched against that. So you have different options on how to do that. Again, you can drill down into that information, as we'll see. So you can drill down on the data in each column just to check this, to decide whether you want to approve or reject the actual inference that's been made. On this, you can actually do this for conforming rows. So you just select the conforming rows, radio button, hit run, and it will show you all of the rows that have met that rule, that met the criteria in that particular rule. Or probably more importantly, maybe you want to look at the non-conforming rows. So again, you select the other radio button, run, and this will show you what rows fails to meet that particular one. So in this example, there's a space in our email, so that would not be considered a valid email. And because it's in a column called email, that's another piece of work we need to look at. But again, you can drill down and see that information. And having reviewed the data, so we've basically run these rules, it has made an inference that column contains email data. You then have an option to either approve or reject that, and that will then get stored to the profile warehouse. So you've basically accepted that, yes, that is correct, that is email data, or else you can reject it and say, no, it's not. And then you can obviously go and check what data meets those particular criteria, and then kind of make business decisions around how you want to process that further. So we've identified all of our data, we've discovered it, we've found what we have. So next is to identify and monitor our data quality trends. So basically, we want to then kind of check how that data has been transformed over time, and if we are actually improving the data, or if we're running into problems where we need to do some more work. So again, scorecards can be created in both locations. For scorecards, quite a bit of the work that you would have to do around setting particular limits, etc., it's done in the analyst UI, and again, I'll show you that as we go through. So scorecards can be created by right-clicking on a profile in the developer, or by the new scorecard option in the add to scorecard option in the analyst. So you have a couple of options there. Again, pretty quick and simple. You do need to profile data. You have to create a profile before you can add it to a scorecard. There is no option to just add a data object to a scorecard straight away. It has to just be profiled first. And you will need to run the profile as well. You need to actually run it once before you can do so. And you can also add multiple profiles that can be added to a single scorecard. And you can pick and choose which columns you add as well. So any profile column can be added to a scorecard. That's not always necessarily great. The best way of utilizing this, for example, in our little screenshot here, we have something called party ID, or we have name, etc. So a lot of those are going to be unique values. So it's kind of probably better if we actually decide, we come up with a rule that will test those to decide if it meets our criteria for being a party ID or a unique ID on that table, or if it meets the criteria we would set for it being a correct name, etc. And they will probably give us more meaningful metrics that we can follow. So rule outputs are more suitable, mainly because they can give us kind of binary results. So it's valid or invalid, it's above or below a certain value, or it's between certain values. And those kind of that kind of information, it's probably more suited to any kind of metric. Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it kind of within a particular set of values that you're aiming for? So those rules. So often scorecards will be made up of a lot more rules rather than just the actual raw column. And once you've actually created your scorecard, you can then look at a trend chart for metrics, which can be accessed from the menu. And that will basically show us how our that particular rule, what the results of that have been over all of the times we've run that scorecard. You have different options here, so you can use it on all rows, or you can actually select last X number of rows, whatever that might be. You may want to just do the last 10 instances, the last 20 instances. You would probably want to keep it below a certain number because the graph can get quite confused if you add too many to it, but you have the option to basically reduce that number, or you could run your scorecard on different schedules just to kind of get that information on maybe a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis as well. And you can also set up notification alerts that can be emailed when scores move below a threshold, etc. So you can actually set that up. So rather than having someone have to go in and check it every day, you can literally just have an email, and you would, that will use the email settings you set up on your DIS. And that will just email out. There's a template email that you can just fill out that will actually get sent based on what criteria you choose when you actually enable notifications. So having created our scorecards, we now want to automate the execution of that. We want to make sure those scorecards are run at regular intervals so that we have a record of how our data is performing against our defined metrics over a period of time. So scorecards, the options for executing these, the simplest way of doing it really, you can run them interactively from the Analyst UI, but if you want to schedule them, you will be using the InfaCMD command line utility. Because it's a command line utility, it gives you a lot of flexibility in how you can use it. So there's just an example. So basically you just say you're going to execute a job. You give it the domain details, some login details, model repository where it's located, data integration service you want to run it against, and the object type is a scorecard. The exact same command will run profiles if you just change OT to profile. And then you give it the location. So my particular scorecard is in a project called RW. There is a folder within that called PRF SCR webinar, and then the actual scorecard is called SCR customers. And it's that simple to run one from the command line. And then you can set that, you can create scripts to run those in any scheduler, so you could use it, for example, cron on Unix, or just task scheduler on Windows, or if you have your own third-party scheduler, that can be used as well. Or if you are running if your mappings are getting run in PowerCenter, be they PowerCenter native mappings that you're measuring metrics against, or if they are data quality mappings that you've exported to PowerCenter, you can actually add a command task to run a scorecard as part of your workflow. So you could run your PowerCenter mapping, which may have some DQ rules embedded in that. When that completes, you could then actually let that feed into a command task in your workflow, which would then run the scorecard to go back and check the metrics on that data and have all that published up. So you can actually tie it all into a single workflow. And that makes sure that as the mappings get run, you're getting your feedback on the actual scores at the metrics immediately on those as well. So it's all tied together at the same time. In terms of scorecards, now we've run our scorecards, everything's up. Now we need to share those results so that people can make decisions on that information. So the scorecard URL is the simplest way. They can be just copied from the browser and emailed to other users. Literally, you just open them up in the Analyst UI and copy the URL, and you can email that. However, to open that link, users will need a login for the Analyst UI. They'll also need permissions on the project containing the scorecard, and they will need access to the Analyst and Scorecard workspace. So there is some kind of prerequisites that are required there. So based on that, it may actually be preferable to actually just access this data using other tools outside of Informatica, where you may actually be able to then kind of use external tools to create views that are similar to what the scorecards look like, and then you can publish those up. And scorecards, they do the job very well. They're a very good visual indicator, but there are other profiling utilities out there that can you can then kind of change and shape that data and present it in a manner that may be more suitable for your particular target audience. So within the profile warehouse, there is a number of views that are available, and they contain most of the, or pretty much all of the key information that we would see in scorecards, profiles, etc. Anything that isn't in these is really just kind of background stuff that's required to make sure everything kind of is correct. So that database has those views, and those are what we recommend you use if you're going to be checking this information outside of the tool, just because we don't recommend querying the database tables directly. So the full details of each of these views is available in the database view reference guide, and your best option for that is just simply search the docs on the InfaSupport portal for database view reference, and you can put in your version. So 9.6.1 will get you that version, obviously, and that would have all the information on the profile warehouse views and the model repository views. So a useful document if you need to gather any information from the Informatica databases. It's probably your first port of call. So as I say, we know where the tables are. You can have a browse through that document to tell you what information is in each of those views. So one of the examples that I mentioned here, because it kind of ties in very much with the information we've looked at so far, is that particular view is IDBV profile results trending, and that exposes the trend of value frequency results over multiple profile or scorecard runs. So within that table, literally, the scorecards and profiles all just get placed in there, so you can just do a select based on the actual name of the object. And these views can be used in reporting tools such as Tableau, Excel, etc., to present your data to meet your needs. As you can see with my kind of quite rudimentary usage of both tools there, I was able to bring in the information from our scorecard and just present it there. If you are, kind of more proficient at using these tools, you can obviously then kind of move that data around, manipulate that, and graph that, and publish up those reports in a manner that your users will find useful and be able to kind of interpret the data quickly and make good, solid business decisions in a timely manner based on the information that's available through the scorecards. So the scorecards they're very useful in themselves, but they're also just a good gateway to actually get that information that you can then use and manipulate and view in various manners. So I'm going to do a quick demonstration now. The demonstration should take about 10 to 15 minutes, and that will leave us with about 10 or 15 minutes for questions. So I will cover anything. If there is, when I've completed this, if there's anything else you'd like to see, you can just let me know then. So I'll just bring up my developer UI. So I'm just going to connect to this, and then I'll probably just jump over to the analyst while this is connecting. So. Okay, so I have my analyst here, so I'm just going to log in. So as I mentioned first off, to create a profile, it's very simple, just literally new data object profile. And we're just going to do column profiling, but as mentioned, you could do data domain discovery. You could do column profiling and data domain discovery, so you can do all of this in a single step. But I'll just do column profiling this time. And the reason the data domain profiling etc. takes quite a while, so we probably overrun our time if I have to wait for some of those to complete. So I'll select a data object, and this is my list of tables that I have, my test table. So I'll use orders. Next. I'll just leave the name, and that's fine. I think I created a demo folder. Yeah, I'm going to place it in my demo folder. You can here then select which columns you want. You don't have to profile all the columns. You can literally just deselect that if I don't want to, but I'll leave everything for the moment. You can also select your sampling options. So you can choose all rows, or you could just choose the first 1,000 rows, first 10,000 rows, or a random sample. So you have different options there. We generally recommend profile on live, drill down on live data, and that will mean when you drill down, it will go directly to your database. You can stage the data. That will mean that all that information will be written to your profile warehouse. So that can mean that you're not hitting your production database maybe when you drill down on this information, but it also does mean you're going to need quite an amount of space on your profile warehouse. So, benefits and kind of, cautionary notes on that both sides. And you can then click on next. So I could just click save and run. So basically what I will actually do though is I will do next just to step you through this. So we looked at filters earlier on. So again, I can add in a filter here. Actually, just got the filter. I'll just go what columns are in this. Price. We'll do price. Around. I don't actually know what values are in this. I'm just going to put 20 and just see. So you can just preview your data then and see if your filter is bringing back the information you want. So this has got price. So this has basically got anything with prices over that. So okay, so it's got 8.0. So that is maybe a different data type. Let me change that to. I'm going to change that to quantity. Quantity. Greater than 2. There we go. This is only then going to profile anything where quantity is greater than 2. And again, I could click into advanced on that, and it'll just show me that in an expression. So then I can just click OK on that. You then select your filter, so you can keep your filters saved as part of the metadata. You don't have to use them at the time, but you can select it. Next. And this is a flat file, so that's why it's not actually giving me an option to add anything else. So it's fine. So let me just save and run. And so that's giving me my results. And like I say, you can kind of get a nice view. So basically the view over here then, the actual size of this circle here is basically around the frequency. You can look at then patterns. So basically the pattern on this is the exact same. It's all numeric by long. Your data types, so it gives you all of the data types that are inferred. So in terms of this, you'd probably reject the 2 data ones immediately because there's only 130 or 293 rows to meet that. So again, rather than information. If it's a integer field, you can also get something like, for example, a sum field. Not maybe kind of too important here, but if you did this on quantity, if I hadn't filtered any data out, if we had a sum of the quantity field, that would actually, if we maybe had a filter on our profile that told us all of the orders in a particular month, we could then just look at the sum here in this and actually see if the actual amount of that sees as the quantity actually matches with what we maybe kind of believe we've shipped from another system or whatever it might be. So lots of kind of good useful information in there. So that's just a basic profile. So back in my developer then, I'll just show you a drill down on a mapping. So this is just an expression I've created. So this is for another profile I think I have here called orders. So I'll open that up in a second. But this is basically just a very simple check on this. So that's just basically what that's doing. So I'm just setting this rule so I can then just right click and just profile there. And that profile will run. Run in the background, should pop up the results in a second. Okay. And there you get your results. So that basically shows there's valid or invalid. So, and that's basically what my rule is just checking. That would be maybe a rule that we'd then add create as a map and apply that to profile. So I think I've actually done that over on this one here, this one I was working on earlier. So if I open up this is a table called orders. It's slightly different, but I think I may have applied this rule. Yeah, I've applied that rule. So if I then look at the results on that. See that there, so that's basically that. So that might be a rule that we would add to a scorecard, and it will give us a useful binary, correct, not correct output. And so that's some of the basic profile. Basically what I will do is I will show you the steps to create a new enterprise discovery profile, but I will not click complete because, as I say, it takes a while to run, so I'm just going to give this next. So at this point here, I could select any of the data objects I've already created. So all of these tables, I could select any of these. But I won't do that this time. I'll just select next. And at this point, you can then get your list of, these are all my connections. It'll include your profile warehouse connections, etc. Any connection you've created in your admin console. You can just select those, and that will literally create data objects for all the tables in there and run profiles on all of those. So that's simple. I could then just click OK on that. That brings me back a list of tables. And then you can do data domain selection. So I could choose to actually do data domain selection. If I deselect that, it won't check those for data domains, but you just yes. I want to basically do column profiling, yes. I'd like to infer primary keys and foreign keys. And you just make sure these are selected, and I could just click finish, and that will go off and create all of those profiles, etc. So I won't run that, like I said, it'll take a while, so I'll just open up one that I have run previously. And I'll just show you the results that we were looking at earlier on in the entity relationship diagram. So this is the diagram. This is the diagram we looked at earlier. So it's this one here. Let me just make this a bit bigger. So as you can see on the screen here, as well. Basically, within this, there are all of these. These are the actual tables that it believes have relationships with customer best records, etc. And there are a smaller number of tables here that it finds relationships between, and then these are just some unrelated items. So there was no relationships inferred between those. So if I'll just choose this larger one because there's more input in there. Okay, bigger. And as you can see, this is the entity relationship diagram, so I can literally just pin that selected data object as the focus of the diagram, and that will change the focus around. So it then shows me how other tables relate to that. And as you can see, there are certain tables there that would have, they don't have a direct relationship. So customer is the one centrally, so all of those tables are found to have a relationship with customer. And as I said, you can right click on these and view the column relationship, etc. You can drill down into that. And you can also see the data domains, etc. So it's all kind of shown in a single place. And again, you can change your definitions, etc. there. And you can go back and you can look at your data domains here as well. So again, this is the data domain. So I am looking at anything that meets the country, anything that was identified as being possibly a country. So all of those probably yes. Maybe province complete, that may not be correct. So that could be, my guess is that might be California, which is CA, is getting confused with Canada, which is also CA in a lot of in the ISO 2 setup. So things like that, that would be something you would then kind of either approve or reject. And you can basically right-click on these and do a verify, which will then, so basically we do an inference on all of the data, and we do a subset, and then you can verify that and run the same route against all of the data, and you can kind of then confirm your results. So that's the enterprise discovery and data domain discovery. And finally, I'll just click back to the analyst, and we'll take a look at a scorecard. So again, if I wanted to add this to a scorecard, I can literally just click on it here and add the scorecard. But I do have one that I think I created earlier on with some rules on it, so we'll just open that up. Yeah, I think it's SEO customers. And so this is one where I've actually created rules. I don't have any of the actual columns from that table on my scorecard. I've simply got rules. These various rules, I can just show you what they will look like. These are all literally just methods over here. So that first one, validate tier, is probably quite simple. So these are, for demonstrations, they're not overly complex, but you get the idea. You can kind of check that the data within that column meets this particular criteria, and then you can set that to either valid or invalid, and that will be the output of it. And then you can kind of then use those kind of yes/no binary kind of results over in your scorecard. And again, you can drill down on these. You can edit that metric. As I said, you can show the trend chart to show you that particular metric. So that one hasn't really changed much, so that's not very interesting. I think I have played around with this one, so let's show you the chart on that one. Now, as you can see, obviously the numbers have changed on that. It's still in the unacceptable zone, so it's still between 0 and 84, still considered unacceptable, but you can see that there is progress moving up over time. How you actually set those thresholds is edit the scorecard. You have a few different groups. You've got metrics, and so basically I can change party ID. So at the moment it has to be above 95% to be acceptable, so I could change that to 80, and that will automatically push the rest of these down. You need to move that, so I'll move that back to 70, and the one in the middle will always be whatever's in between those numbers. And you can't change it. There are, if you look at the KB, I think there are some kind of tips and tricks around where you can try and get just 2 scores of yes or no in here, but the default is the 3, so either good, acceptable, or unacceptable. And again, that might be where you might want to use some external tools that maybe you can kind of set that just purely binary results. It's invalid, or it's valid or invalid. It's above or below the threshold. But again, if I save and run that, we should see party ID will, although the values haven't changed, it's still got a score of 77.24, as we can see here. It should go to probably yellow, if I recall the settings. We set it to anything above. Yeah, so it's gone to accept. It's acceptable now. It's not good, but it's acceptable. So again, that's how you can play around scorecards. You can add, and you can edit that. You can add on other metric groups. I could literally go into metric groups, and then you can new group, and through that you can add in other values there as well. And again, notifications, you can just enable notification, and you can just set your setting to and say whether you want an email when it's unacceptable. Maybe you want to actually be some message out when it just drops even into the acceptable zone, etc. So those are scorecards in the analyst. That is kind of everything I said I'd go through in a demo. I think that covers pretty much all of the stuff we've done in the slides as well. Like I said, the information in those views you can find in the guide, and if you have any, if you have access to your databases, you should be able to see those. Or else you can, if you have access in the developer UI, for example, you could new data object. And you could actually, if you have that in your list, you could actually take a look at the views here, so like that. Back up to the views, and I think it was maybe PV. So far, we're trending, something like that. And there you can actually see what data is in there again. You can have a look at what's going on there. So you can take a look. So you just have a look at the views. So we don't the tables. We very much request customers try and avoid using those directly at all, because you could end up corrupting some of the information in there. And I know in certain database types, I think DB2, you can end up locking the tables. So not a good idea. So that's everything I had to present. I think we have some time left, so I'm basically going to open up the call, and if you have any questions or anything you'd like to see, you can either call them out on the phone, or else if you want, I think I have a couple of things here in chat as well. So we have one here. So please clarify the difference between profile runtime environments, native and Hive. Okay, so to answer that question, If you have a Hadoop cluster available, you can push a profile down to run there, or native just means that it's actually going to run on your whatever machine your DIS is on, it's going to just run on that single machine. So I've got my DIS on my server, or maybe I have it across a grid, it'll actually do it there as well. But if you have a Hadoop nodes available, it'll push it down to those. It does change a couple of things if I remember correctly. So if I go to, let me try and just modify this one if I can. Run settings. So if I don't actually have Hive available, unfortunately. I think basically here it says, yeah, no, it's not going to allow me to do. I don't actually have that set up, but yeah, that's effectively the difference. And there is more information in the documentation on that. But it's really just selecting whether you're going to run it locally on your DIS or if you're going to push it down to a Hadoop cluster. There are no more questions just yet in the chat. If you do want to add in a question in the chat, please do. But I'm going to open up the call, so if you have a question that you'd like to call out, just feel free to do so.
Presentation mode is now disabled.
And while we're waiting, if there is any questions that you would think of later on or anything after this, what I would suggest you can try and do is, if you go onto the InfaSupport forum and find the data quality and profiling section, if you put in a post in there and just put in the title, profiling and scorecarding webinar question, just put in your question into that then. I'm basically a moderator on that particular forum, so if you do think of questions after this that you'd like answered, feel free to pop them in there. I'll answer them as best I can in that forum as well. I know that sometimes you leave these kind of sessions and something kind of occurs to you that you would like to ask. So if you do think of a question afterwards, feel free to use that as an option to get in touch. As I mentioned earlier, the recording will be made available to you. You will get an email over the next day or so where you will receive the link for that, and there will also be a survey in that, and we would appreciate if you fill that in and give us any feedback that you have on the content of these sessions, anything that you'd like to see in the sessions in future, etc. Any feedback you have at all, and basically kind of just feedback on this particular session as well, and how you found it and whether you feel it's useful. Okay, so I've got a question here. Let me just check this. Enterprise profiling was available from 9.5 onwards, so that was introduced in 9.5. If you're on 9.1, it's not available. 9.5 onwards, we introduced enterprise data discovery and data domain discovery. They were introduced in that particular version. Okay, I'm taking it then that there are no more questions. Like I say, if you do anything occurs to you, post it up on the forum and just mention that your questions related to this webinar. I'll pick it up there and get it answered over the next day or so. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, I have a question like, can we export this scorecards? Is there any possibility that we can export it without sharing URL?
No, let's say basically the only way to see the information is through. You can export, you can do a drill down and export the data, but again, it's an interactive thing. You actually have to right click, it's get someone to log in and do that. So best option for sharing the data is to develop some kind of report based on the views, etc. So it's kind of an area that there's kind of there's better tools out there than we can develop in terms of presenting the data. So we make the views available. We give you a basic kind of view, but you will need access to the actual the analyst tool to do that. It can be just view access, but you would actually need to log into the analyst It can be just set up so that all you can do is log in, actually be in that particular workspace, and you won't have any permissions to run anything, etc., create anything, but you would actually need an analyst login and permissions to view that particular project.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So yes, there is an option in the, you can actually connect up so the question is, can we relate the scorecards to metadata manager? There is an option on the services where you can actually connect those two services, you can relate them and that information. Same when you're doing any profiling, you can also get it to use business glossary information as well, so you can actually, if you have business glossary installed and you have that there as well, and metadata manager, you can connect all those. It's all part of the, I don't have the admin console at the moment, but you can configure it on the services where you actually make that connection. Okay, unless there are any other final questions, I'll end the call and thank everyone for joining. Thank you for your time. And again, I hope you found the information useful. If you do have questions, post them up on the forum and I'll answer those the best I can. Thank you for your time. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.